Why do people hate? Is it just skin color or does it go deeper than that? Well, let's talk about it. As individuals, as humans, we all have a level of prejudice, racial caution, and some folks that's flat, straight out racism. Now, some will say, not me. Well, I would say, yes, you. Now, I'm not saying that you hate or you're racist, but we all have some bias. The question is why? People, number one, hate what they don't know. People hate what they don't understand. We'll get to that in a moment, but when do we see the first case of hate in the Bible outside of Satan hating God? We see Satan hating God's creation in the garden being Adam and Eve. But in regards to human hate, we see Cain killed Abel. The question is why? Well, Cain killing Abel was not necessarily due to Abel's offering being better than Cain. Cain has something already brewing in his heart. Genesis 4:7 says, "If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it." So we see here something Cain did was wrong. Maybe he gave his offering grudgingly. Maybe he had some type of bad intentions. Maybe he gave it with wrong motivation. But something was off with Cain. Whatever it was, it created a jealousy and anger that was turned towards Abel, who we don't see him doing wrong by Cain. Now, Abel just presented his offering to God. 1 John 3:12 says, "We should not be like Cain, who was of the evil one and murdered his brother." And why did he murder him? Because his own deeds were evil and his brother's righteous. So we further see it was a heart issue with Cain. When someone hates someone, it stems from the heart. And we see in scripture, it tells us that the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Hate for others usually comes from self-hate, which then manifests because it's uncomfortable to self-hate. So we gotta lash out on someone else. Someone else is at fault or has to be the blame for why that person feels this way. We see mass shooters. They kill others and kill themselves most of the time because there's this pinned up self-hate. But they have to have someone else pay the penalty for why they feel that way. We see in race relations, we see early in our American history that if you don't look like us, if you don't do what we do, if you don't sound like us, guys, think about it. Colonists came to escape tyranny and then did the same thing to the Native Americans. Natives didn't want to conform to the European way of living for the most part, especially Christianity. They believe in ancestral worship, spirit worship, and because of their non-compliance or failure to conform, well, we know what happened. But then we see they even killed converted Native Americans because hate runs deep. You begin to hate everything about a person, about a group, the way they look, the way they smell, their traditions, their way of life, their speech, all of it, because hate, for the lack of a better word, it's a cancer that eats up everything around it. Proverbs 26:24-26 says, "Whoever hates disguises himself with his lips and harbors deceit in his heart. When he speaks graciously, believe him not, for there are 7 abominations in his heart. Though his hatred be covered with deception, his wickedness will be exposed in the assembly." Guys, this right here is laced throughout our history. I'll put it in simpler terms. Smile in your face and stab you in the back. I remember growing up, my father, bless his heart, he's gone now. He's been gone for a long time, but he had a problem with pretty much every race you could think of. Africans, whites, Spanish. Why? Because he had bad experiences with all of them. He met some arrogant Africans. He was in the South. He was born in the South of the South, the deep South, Alabama. And when he was a kid, they still had sharecropping. It's crazy, right? And he had a bad encounter with a white man. It was such a bad encounter that he had to flee from there. And when we were growing up for a couple years, we had a slumlord who was Hispanic. So he put them all in the same basket. But he softened up a little bit later on in life. But yeah, sometimes people hate because they are told to hate as kids, or they had bad experiences with other races. So every black or white man or Indian man is like that. Every Chinese person, because a few of them have followed you around the store, hate all black people, when that is not the case. So what do you do if you have this kind of thing brewing in your heart? In fact, you could be a Christian and still have this in there and not even know it. Guys, when I started out in my walk, we used to go out and do one-on-one witnessing. And to be transparent and honest, I hated going to white neighborhoods or predominantly white neighborhoods. Not because I hated the people, but because I felt like they didn't like me. It was extremely uncomfortable going up to a white person and sharing the gospel in my early years, my early walk. I'm just being honest. But get me around my people when we go to the hood and witness. Man, I'm in my element. No problem there. So you can be saved and still have bias, and prejudice can still be lingering in there. One thing I pray every day, or try to pray for every day, is, Lord, please create in me a clean heart. Because I know all of this stems from the heart. So I need the Lord to clean it up. And if you feel like you got this going on, I pray that you do the same, because this has no room in the building. This has no room in his temple. So guys, listen, as always, be bold, be blessed, but most importantly, be biblically constructed.